Gentleman from the 34th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've been in here a long time, and I don't want to take up valuable time today, but I want to call everyone's attention to something that, despite all the good things I think we're trying to do, things that have happened in the state, obviously an overwhelming number of people that voted for the road amendment. I know that we're down here trying to make certain that we put West Virginians to work with some of the legislation that we passed. But I want you to think about something. 1,848 square feet. Maybe it's the size of someone's home, the size of a barn, a couple tennis courts. I don't know. I haven't calculated it out, but I know that's what the square footage is. And that is the amount of property that has kept a business from coming into West Virginia, in Braxton County, in Burnsville. But it could be in any one of your communities or any one of your counties. Now, a chain store has been trying to locate in Burnsville for quite some time. And there's a small sliver of right-of-way that is totally landlocked that belongs to the Department of Highways. And that developer, over a long period of time, they had even gone to the trouble of working with the people that owned the property, evicting renters. I know the delegate from the 12th, and I know the speaker knows where this area is exactly. The developer had been paying in lieu of the rent that this lady was losing. 22 by 84, totally landlocked, totally undevelopable, but the small chain store needed that to pick up some parking spaces and a turning radius to be able to get the trucks in to unload. Now bear in mind that there's not a grocery store in Burnsville. And maybe many of you have communities in your districts that don't have a grocery store. So outside of going to a convenience store to get a gallon of milk or just a loaf of bread, you know, they have a long drive to go somewhere. And it's been a long time since there's been a new business built in Burnsville. And the town has been working diligently with them, identifying property and trying to work to make this happen. You know, I've been a firm believer that good things happen if it happens in any of your communities. It may not have a direct effect on my constituents, but it's going to lift all boats. It will lift all boats. And eventually there will be a benefit to all West Virginians, whether it's direct or indirect. And I'm encouraged that I spoke with Commissioner Smith this morning. I spoke with Chief of Staff Mike Hall last week. But this developer pulled out of the deal last week because they couldn't get an 1,848 square foot piece of property that was leased to them for more than 5 years. And the developer said, we're not going to come in for that. You know, we got to have at least a 15-year lease. And then they were told that, well, it's a legislative rule or it was a legislative audit, and our legislative manager has diligently worked over the past week or so to try to find that. Can't find it. So then I'm told this morning, well, maybe it was just a memo from over at Division Highways. I haven't seen, unless it's in my inbox right now, I've not seen it yet. But I talked to Commissioner Smith. I believe this will happen. My biggest concern now, the developer, they will reconsider. I don't know. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this small store, chain store, it's not Macy's. It's not a Cabela's Warehouse. It's not a Procter & Gamble. It's not going to put 500 to 1,000 people to work. It's probably going to put about 8, 10 people to work, if it happens. If it happens. Don't you think that heaven and earth would be moved if it was a Macy's or a Procter & Gamble and 1,848 square feet would have stood in the way of that development? We would have paid them to take the property. We would have paid them. I guess my frustration is I'm very grateful and very appreciative that the commissioner, the governor's office have now intervened, but that shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case, because we may have, and I wouldn't have been aware of this had the town of Burnsville not let me know about it. That just out of frustration, the developer said, we've had enough. We're just walking away. How many times has that happened that none of us in this room know about it? How many opportunities have we lost? Because I can tell you, in a small community, maybe it's not Macy's, maybe it's not Procter & Gamble, maybe it's not 500 jobs. 8 or 10 jobs in a small community moves the needle. It moves the unemployment needle. It makes a difference. But for some reason, somewhere, at some level, we have completely lost track, and we're only focusing and looking at these big projects, but we've got a lot of small towns, and you folks represent them just like I do. We need to have a focus from the top down that doesn't just look at the massive employers that are coming in. Oh, we want them, and we need them. But those little employers lift all boats just like the big ones do. Because you get enough of those, you're going to make a difference in your communities, whether you're a large community or a small community. So I wanted to take the floor out of appreciation to the commissioner and to the governor's office, and specifically to Chief of Staff Mike Hall, for the willingness to intervene. And I believe there may be a willingness for them to actually put in a call to this company to ask them to reconsider, and I hope they do. But I would just say this: what kind of a message does this send when a small community is trying its very best to pull itself up by its bootstraps, getting no assistance from anybody up the ladder, and you hit a brick wall over 1,848 square feet that is totally, has no value to anybody except somebody that wants to develop his property? Mr. Speaker, as we go into the session in January, and my friend, the finance chairman, and all of you in this body, majority, minority alike, we need to work on these things, because there's a lot of things falling through the cracks in this state that's 8 or 10 jobs that we may not know about, but we've got to put a focus on putting a priority on those. And all the things that we talk about here that we need to do, we need to, we've enacted these reforms and those reforms. Some of them, and none of those were mentioned in any of this. We're not going to make an investment like that unless we can get at least a 15-year lease with some guarantees for renewal. I understand that. And I think you understand that too. This is not a piece of property that's going to appreciate in value. It's landlocked. The town's been mowing it, for heaven's sakes. I hope this can get worked out, but most of all, I hope that each of you in this body don't have to have those kind of stories and that kind of heartache and that kind of disappointment in the communities and the folks that you represent. So I will certainly be there to help each of you on those type of projects, and I hope that we can all work together and lift all boats in all communities, large and small, and lift all employers, large and small, across this great state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.